Everybody in the gym. Look, if I'm in there, what do I need to look for? I mean, a child's not going to hold up a red flag and say, hey, I was sexually molested last night.
Unfortunately, children usually don't tell us directly about sexual abuse. Sometimes it's what they don't say, or indirectly say, that can lead us to suspect sexual abuse. There are certain behaviors that serve as red flags. Just because you see one of these behaviors does not necessarily mean that sexual abuse has occurred. But if you see clusters of behaviors, you really need to discuss it with your school counselor. There may be physical indicators that serve as red flags. Physically, children may have difficulty walking or complain of pain in genital and rectal areas. Some children may constantly clear throat, have stomach pains which have no physical origin. Behaviors you may see in sexually abused children include an unusual knowledge of sexual acts and language inappropriate for the child's age. They may have a preoccupation with their sexual organs and other children's and adults' sexual organs. Some young children are seductive, while other children withdraw or regress. You may notice they have suddenly developed an intense fear or dislike for a particular person. Sexually abused children are sometimes unwilling to participate in PE class. The children will dress in layers, and their hygiene sometimes suffers.
Oftentimes, I see children show up to school dirty or wearing clothing that's inappropriate for the weather. Isn't that a sign of neglect?
That's neglect.
What about the kids who are always asking for food and lunch money? Is that neglect?
That's neglect when I come to school dirty or hungry. I may even steal food sometimes.
8 out of 1,000 children experience neglect every year.
So does that mean that all poor people neglect their kids? Because I see some kids are always hungry and their clothes don't fit.
Then those kids are neglected. Being poor is not the same thing as being neglected or abused. Poor people don't have the best clothes, but their clothes are still clean. And their children are fed.
Poor parents help their children. They will come to school meetings and make sure that homework is done.
Poor children aren't afraid of their parents either.
Half the children maltreated or neglected.
So what are some other signs of neglect that I'm to be aware of?
Well, what a house looks like can show that a child is neglected. A lot of garbage or homes without heat can indicate neglect. You might see vicious animals or violent individuals. For example, a home where there's domestic violence, like a father hitting the mother, can be neglectful to their child. Neglected children aren't always poor either. Rich people can neglect their children also.
That's right. This buddy of mine, his parents have a pool and a jacuzzi, you know, a real nice house. But they're never at home. They're always away at business trips or business dinners or parties. You know, he eats TV dinners every night of the week by himself in that huge house. Man, I feel sorry for him. His parents just ignore him. Man, now that's neglect.
Child neglect can be thought of as the failure of the parents or the caregivers to adequately provide for the physical, emotional, intellectual, and social well-being of a child. Neglect is a pattern of behaviors. You may see parents that are not able to provide adequate supervision due to their own addictions. These parents are not able to care for their children. Neglected children may also have untreated illnesses or disabilities.
15% of cases involved abandonment, congenital drug use, and threats to harm. 2% involved medical neglect.
But these families can be helped. Oftentimes, in the case of neglect, the parents are just lacking resources or knowledge. With the appropriate services, these families can be given resources and information to better care for their children. But it's up to you, the mandated reporter, to report to your school social worker or school counselor so they can get help. When child abuse goes unreported, there's a 50% chance that that child will be abused again. And if that child is abused again, there's a 35% chance that that child will be seriously injured or killed. Experts agree that most child abuse still goes unreported. Why aren't you reporting?
There's so much information to remember.
You don't have to remember it all. Our school has a policy that states all of this and even provides more detail. If you have questions, ask the reporter for your building. That person could be the principal, like myself, or a school social worker, or a school counselor.
What about spanking? Is that child abuse?
Spanking is not child abuse. However, it can lead to abuse. For example, if a spanking is so severe that you see evidence of abuse, like bruises or shapes of objects, then you should report it.
Look, I don't have time for all this. I'm a teacher, not a private eye.
Making a verbal report to your school counselor or social worker takes very little time.
Just 10 minutes of your time could give a child a lifetime, or at least an opportunity for a better life. On the other hand, how much time do you already spend for neglect?
What do you mean?
Do you spend much on discipline, getting students to do their homework, writing IEPs for special education? How much time do you spend from parents trying to get them in from?
I guess it's like you always tell me, you have a choice. You can spend less time now or later. And don't get to choose which laws you want to obey.
My dad was a brown suit, a hat, and a badge, like you see on TV.
Oh, so your daddy's a police officer. Look, I'd just rather not get involved in abuse cases.
It's your job. You have to report. Right, Dad? This is my dad.
That's right. Because of the nature of your job, you're a mandated reporter. And the law states that you're required to report any suspected abuse. And it's the responsibility of the local police department, the Department of Family and Children's Services, to do any investigating. And any mandated reporter making a report in good faith is protected by law. As a matter of fact, you face greater legal problems for not reporting and reporting. In other words, it's not your choice, it's your responsibility.
But what if I'm wrong?
Legally, it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. As long as you make the report in good faith. And good faith just means this. You've given careful thought to what you saw and heard. And remember, you're doing this not to hurt, but to help.
Nothing happens anyway when I report. I call and call and call. Sometimes there is an investigation, but nothing changes. The child remains in the home and maybe gets hurt for telling family secrets. And now I have a child that may still be getting hurt and doesn't trust me anymore.
It is frustrating when we do what we think will help a child and nothing seems to change. But not reporting doesn't protect a child either. Not only are you violating the law when you don't report, you're also giving permission for the abuse to continue. When you choose not to report a suspected child abuse, then you're sending a message to the people, especially the lawmakers. They may think the problem of child abuse is being corrected. And if lawmakers think child abuse cases are decreasing, they'll think it's because our current system is effective. They will not see any reason then to improve the system. Worse than that, they may not see that great of a need for the prevention and intervention services anymore. Either way, that means less dollars. We will continue to shortchange our children. So instead of helping, you will become part of a system that will continue to ignore the health and well-being of our children if you don't report. The statistics are overwhelming and the task appears to be great. But remember, child abuse is a crime that must be stopped, and it's a crime not to stop it. Child abuse is a systematic crime. So it's got to take a strong, systematic chain of events to stop it. You are just a part of that system. And sometimes you, the mandated reporter, are a child's only link to a pain-free life.
You were real brave for telling me that. Let's go find somebody to make it better.
I know that you're scared, but we can't keep this a secret.
I know you don't want to get your parents in trouble. Neither do I. I want to get you and them help.
Yes, I need to report a possible child abuse.
That must be really hard. Why don't we go to the school counselor and talk about that so you won't feel like you have to steal food?
You see, we are each like a link in a chain. Oftentimes when you report, you'll be the first link, but not the last link. We must all work together in a chain of events to stop the crime. But we are only as strong as our weakest link. So if you suspect child abuse or neglect,
please report. Bye.